Hey there, what's going on? Tyler here with your movie fix, and I am here joined again by Mr. Dalton. How's it going?
Pretty good. Hello, everybody.
All right, we got just two stories. We're going to try to keep this episode just a little shorter. We got these two stories over the last 3 days, maybe the last 2 days. I don't even know anymore. Just been really busy. But two very giant stories in the world of DC that we now have a director officially for the Batman film with Ben Affleck. We're going to have Matt Reeves. And we're also going to talk about the announcement that they're working on Nightwing, that's been put in development. So let's dive right into this first story with Matt Reeves, officially signed on to be producing and directing Batman. So we got these rumors that he was the one in talks, that he was the front runner, and for all these negotiations, on top of all these other directors that were thrown out there. And then we heard, about a week ago that he had kind of stepped out of negotiations. They were letting heads cool down, made it sound like there was a lot of probably arguing going on between these people and trying to get an agreement, and it kind of looked like he probably wasn't going to sign on. Did you hear those rumors?
Yeah, I heard that was very heated in the discussion rooms of what wanted to go on with the deal between Reeves and DC.
Yeah, and from what I hear, and I want to say Justin Kroll of Variety was talking about this, or one of the other reporters of Deadline something, they had mentioned what was actually happening when that report went out. It's not so much a rumor as it was a report that things probably were getting that way. But it was kind of just a back and forth of will he, won't he, and maybe not so much of an argument in that this was kind of a PR stunt by his agents, trying to actually land him probably a better deal out of Batman. And that shit's pretty normal. It's just negotiation tactics, and they're probably just trying to get a slightly better deal, out of doing the movie with who knows if they're gonna get him for multiple movies. That would be pretty cool if we could at least get two, out of Matt Reeves. But, and then you have your agents put out the story that, things were going too well, and it kind of puts the pressure on Warner Brothers because they did really want Matt Reeves to be doing this. So it's nice to know that we actually did land him. And, I'm more surprised that we had these two really big stories, really positive stories coming out. And the day later, we didn't hear all these negative rumors about all this shit happening at Warner Brothers. Like, conveniently, there's always good news. And then the next day, we just hear a bunch of shit. Mm-hmm. But, getting Matt Reeves, you couldn't really got a better replacement. What do you think about all of this nonsense that was going on with the reports and now that we actually have him on board?
Well, I'm glad that it's all just finally subsided and we can now officially just take a breath of fresh air to the fact that Matt Reeves will direct the Batman. And it's very nice to just finally have the closure of, okay, at least it's not open in the air anymore. We have someone, we can continue moving forward with it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the shooting date will be affected by the whole big mishap and everything, but...
Well, what I heard was that, pretty much as soon as he's done doing post, that they're going to be putting it in production as soon as they can and working on filling the cast and start pre-production. So we could still see a 2018 release date as long as they aren't trying to go too big on what this story should be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely okay with the 2018 release date, just as long as it's the right thing to do. I just don't want anything to be rushed. But I have a feeling with a caliber of director of Matt Reeves coming onto the project that he wouldn't rush anything that he would have his name on. So I think that whatever decision they make will be the right one.
Well, not to mention that he's already done this before, jumping into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Mm-hmm. That was already started pre-production. And they've already got quite a few things done for the pre-production of Batman, as far as sets, like the Wayne Manor, the Lake House. I know they've kept those. They've got the Batmobile. They've got costumes. The Batcave, that set has been left there to be used for Justice League and Batman. I think those are in the UK lot for Warner Brothers, but they've got a decent amount of some of the bigger things done. And also, the script and the story has been worked on for almost a year now. They have a general story of what's going on. But also, we did have a couple of comments from Matt Reeves after this announcement, and he had to say, "I have loved the Batman story since I was a child. He's such an iconic and compelling character, the one that resonates with me deeply. I'm incredibly honored and excited to be working with Warner Brothers to bring an epic and emotional new take on the Caped Crusader to the big screen." Really, it's great to hear a statement immediately, with this. I almost didn't think we were going to hear anything about a director until Comic-Con, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and I'm also glad that Matt Reeves did release that statement, because it's always nice when a big property and a big important character to everyone is directed by someone who loves it and someone who knows how to treat it. It's always like an extra little thing for fans and just for people everywhere to know, like, all right, it's in good hands. It's in the hands of somebody who loves the material.
Mm-hmm. And I did do a video a while back about top 5 stories that I thought that Ben should adapt. I'd still stick with those are just 5 stories that I want to see adapted. And I still think that Matt Reeves would be more than capable of tackling any of those, especially The Court of Owls or Hush. One of those stories would be amazing. Or I'd really like to see an adaptation of an amalgam of Arkham Asylum. Adapted for a movie, like what the game was. A mixture of the game, and there's a story about Arkham Asylum, and just take take a movie set in one night with Batman in Arkham Asylum dealing with everyone in there. Everyone's kind of breaking out, and I even mentioned that would be a good way to introduce Nightwing. And now that we are getting Nightwing, that's pretty cool. But he mentioned that, he's excited to be blah, 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 bringing an epic and new emotional emotional new take on the character. I'm curious if that means that, he's just excited to be working on, this is a newer Batman. It's Ben's Batman, not Christian Bale's, or one that we've seen before. And it'll be his first solo movie. I'm hoping that this movie just doesn't focus too much on the parents thing. I think that's kind of been beaten, that's beating a dead horse at this point, that we get it. And I don't want to see some new take on what happened to Bruce. We got it in Dawn of Justice. I don't think that's what he's going for with saying he's going to bring an emotional new take, because we already got that. I'm hoping he's just referring to working with Ben as a new Batman.
I agree, and like kind of like, I really like what on the Marvel side of things. I like that what they've done with Spider-Man so far is that they've not even mentioned his origin in the new Spider-Man, and it's just because everybody knows how Spider-Man is Spider-Man. You don't really need to hear it again.
Yeah.
I mean, and while I'm sure in Homecoming we might get like a brief thing about Uncle Ben or his powers or something, they've accepted the fact that, hey, we can tell the story and we can move forward from the fact that we don't have to go and waste all that screen time and development on that when people already know it. And I think, and I agree with you, that they shouldn't do that with Batman either, because everyone knows this character, everyone loves this character, and they can move forward with the story without having to take a few steps back.
Yeah, I just think he's pretty much referring to working with Ben, and whether it's Batman or Spider-Man, like those are such known stories that everybody gets it. And like you said, well, I'm sure they'll gloss over it, but also people kept going back to, oh well, they didn't include Ben in this press release. They're like, well, they didn't confirm that he's still working on it. And then, just like an hour or two later after this, Ben sends out on all his social media the image of him in the Batcave saying, welcome to the Batcave, Matt Reeves. And I remember Matt replied, and, he wasn't even calling him Ben. Like, he was just like, oh, thanks, man. Like, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sure they're going to be doing a great job on that. And it's just nice to see Ben just kind of chime in there. Again, we get this good news of hearing that Matt Reeves is directing, and then people are trying to spin it. Well, why didn't they include Ben in the press release? Why he wasn't there? Is he dropping out? It was just the negativity, trying to spin it in some bullshit way. But he commented, and we also got a comment here from Toby Emmerich, President and Chief Content Officer of Warner Brothers, and he said, "We are thrilled to have Matt Reeves taking the helm of Batman, the crown jewel of our DC slate. Matt's deep roots in genre films and his evolution into an emotional world-building director make him the perfect filmmaker to guide The Dark Knight through his next journey," which is, just nice to hear, but it's interesting that they refer to it as the crown jewel of our DC slate. I understand that Batman is the cash cow and the crown jewel of Warner Brothers to begin with, but to specifically say the DC slate, that makes me really curious what they have planned for this movie.
Yeah, me too.
And Roca mentioned this on Collider Movie Talk about, we're getting, between Suicide Squad and Sirens and stuff, we're spending a lot of time in Gotham. and now we're getting Nightwing. I at least these first three movies between Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, Justice League are basically a Superman-esque trilogy. I was hoping we could get to follow more on that, but maybe the back half of the slate will be more Batman intensive. But I still think they're waiting to announce a Man of Steel sequel, probably until after Justice League comes out, because yes, a lot of comic fans, they know it. They know Superman is coming back, but a lot of people don't get that. They don't know that Superman is going to be coming back to life. So I think they're just waiting to probably announce it, maybe towards Comic-Con, but I don't think they want to put that information out there too soon. That Man of Steel 2 is definitely happening. This is what it's going to be.
Yeah, and Roca also mentioned, like, he said we're spending a lot of time in Gotham, and then he also said, I just want to see Cavill in another Superman movie, and I couldn't agree more with him. Yep. Because to me, Cavill is not okay. First of all,
I think he's so underused.
Yes, I agree so much. Because first of all, the guy just looks like Superman, and even just beside the point, you can tell he has a great Superman performance in him, and they just keep not giving him his moment to be Superman and just let that shine. Even in Man of Steel, which I actually think is a good movie.
That's my biggest gripe about it. Is they don't really give Henry some moments to shine, because if you've seen anything behind the scenes or interviews with him, he is like the most nicest, charismatic man on the fucking planet.
Yes.
I mean, he's as Superman as it gets. And I'm hoping, it's just part of what they're doing, and I really want to see more of his personality shine through, especially in Justice League and hopefully in a Man of Steel sequel. But that's pretty much my big gripe with that. But getting Matt Reeves on board, Cloverfield, Let Me In, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes, which is getting some good buzz from the test screenings. At least that's the rumor going around, that War is apparently as good as it looks. I pretty much have no problems. I'm not anticipating that movie really having too many issues. I mean, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is probably one of the most underappreciated genre films of the 2000s. I mean, that's up there with The Dark Knight and Empire Strikes Back of the best sequel ever. So
it was an excellent sequel, and what made it so great is that not only did it improve and build upon that original movie, is that it took it in a completely different direction, but it still knew what to do and what it was. It didn't go so different to make it bad. It went different because it knew it had to be different, and that's what really, I think, set it over the edge for me.
Yeah, so we know that Matt Reeves can definitely handle the pressure of what they're going to be doing, and they've already got these negotiations out of the way. He seems really excited to get on board, and it's going to be starting soon, so hopefully we hear some more news about what's going to be going on as far as, what they're doing with these directors. But I want to know what's going on with Flash, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But we're going to move on to this second story here with Chris McKay is going to be doing Nightwing. Chris McKay was the director of this year's Lego Batman film. He had mentioned, I think, a little bit before the release or just after the release of Lego Batman, that he was going to be meeting with Jeff Johns and the Warner Brothers heads to pitch an idea of something that he wanted to work on. That makes me really curious if he pitched the idea of doing a Dick Grayson movie as Nightwing, or if he just pitched the idea of wanting to work with them and they had something in mind. But he did specifically say that he was pitching something to them. And it's very curious that they did, go with Nightwing. And although it was a report that he was going to be working on it, this isn't so much rumor, it's that Chris McKay is in negotiations. And he's been replying to everyone on Twitter about it. He's like, I won't let you down. I'm really excited to work on this. So it sounds like it's just a matter of signing on the dotted line at this point and making it happen. And also, we're going to have Bill Dubuque, who's going to be writing the story for Nightwing, and he previously did The Accountant last year with Ben Affleck.
Yes.
Again, The Accountant is it's a book adaptation. If I'm incorrect there, I'm pretty sure it is a book adaptation. So, going to be drawing from some Batman stories, of course. So, what do you make of Chris McKay doing Nightwing?
I think it's an interesting call. I always sort of pictured Nightwing as maybe more of a side character, helping Batman in his own way, but at the same time, Nightwing is such a fascinating character. The story of Dick Grayson and Batman clashing heads and him having to go his own route is such a fascinating thing that after thinking about it, it does deserve its own movie. And as for Chris McKay, I mean, I think that he clearly, with Lego Batman, he proved that he is a huge Batman fan. And I
Hmm.
think that regardless of if he pitched it or if Warner Brothers pitched it, I just his excitement and his willingness and readiness to do this is such a great sign for DC. Because at first I was worried because you know how DC likes to announce movies that never happen.
Hmm.
And so I was kind of worried about that. But then once I saw the excitement of Chris McKay and the fact that they're using Chris McKay, where they were smart enough to take someone who made something of that property in his own way and said, you know what, maybe this guy can be beneficial to us. I think that it's a smart move. You know, just just as long as Nightwing is the exact replication of Robin from the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah. It, I'll touch on that in just a second, but I do find it ironic. You know, if you guys listen to our comments, our reviews on the Lego Batman film last episode, I think Chris McKay has a terrific understanding of who Batman is. He does still, I get it, he does understand the lore very much. He has a good understanding of Bruce and both Dick Grayson. I just didn't like what he went with the Lego movie, which I just find this super ironic because I did love him for doing the Lego Batman, but I love him so much because it was a good, well-structured movie. It was fun and funny. I'm not expecting Nightwing to have that tone, but I just know that the guy knows how to tell a good story, and he understands the world of Batman. Granted, Nightwing it's kind of a different machine, man. This was Robin. We know that he exists now. I remember hearing rumors of things that were probably in the script for Dawn of Justice, or at least they were in the story that just never got mentioned in the final cut of the film. That yes, we had Jason Todd. He was the Robin that was killed by both Joker and Harley. We see that in a little snippet of Suicide Squad. It was mentioned that she was in prison for an accomplice to the murder of Jason Todd, Robin. And apparently in the story for Dawn of Justice that Dick Grayson had kind of gone off and done his own thing. He was kind of estranged to Bruce. There was a falling out between them after Jason. And I really like that because I like Jason Todd. I don't really care to see a Red Hood movie, whether that's a Red Hood movie itself or even bringing him into a Batman movie. I don't want to see it. If it was announced, I'm still going to end up getting excited, and I will be first in line to go watch it.
Same.
But the idea of having Nightwing be estranged to Bruce, I like that. I like having the consequences. He grew up with Dick Grayson. He went on to do his own thing. He got Jason Todd. He died. That's a consequence. Live with that. That's a real life thing. Him and Dick had a big falling out because of his death. He drove him apart. That's something that is really big in the Batman comics, and that's something that he actually touched on in the Lego movie, that Bruce pushes everyone away that gets close to him. And it's one of the biggest faults of his character, but it's what makes him so great. So I'm really excited about that. Really excited about Bill Dubuque writing it from The Accountant. Solid movie there. That seems like a pretty good pair. I like that Warner Brothers is sticking in-house with the people that they've been working with over the last few months. And so what does this really mean? Do you think it really opens up the door for passing the torch on to Nightwing? Or do you think that, opening up Nightwing and having Matt Reeves on board, say Batman turns out terrific, 95% Rotten Tomatoes, everyone loves it, 800 million worldwide, does amazing, Justice League is great. Throwing Nightwing in there, do we still need to pass the torch? Or does having him enforce that we can keep Ben on board? And it kind of serve, we can sprinkle a little bit of Batman in there into this Nightwing movie. There's no way they're not going to have Batman in this Nightwing movie. It's impossible. You can't, you really cannot do that with what's going to go on. So do you think there's still a need to pass the torch?
I think, like you said, the need to pass the torch would depend on the upcoming success of their films.
Yeah.
But I think it would be dumb to not assume that part of the reason Warner Brothers has greenlit this is a way of, hey, just in case
it's a back door.
Yeah, just in case things go south and Ben doesn't want to be here anymore, we have this Nightwing character to sort of pick up the mantle. However, I would like it more if it was more successful and we got to see both, because their dynamic is something we haven't seen on screen before, but in comics and in animations, it was always a very interesting dynamic to see. And I think that with the Nightwing character, I personally think that they should find a way to sort of have him cameo in the Batman movie first, because while you know who he is and I know who he is, if you ask a random guy in Kansas who Nightwing is, they're gonna have no clue. And I think that, no offense to people in Kansas, but I think that by introducing the character of Nightwing into the Batman movie, not only are you going to get people thinking, "Oh, he's a cool character," people are going to go home and Google Nightwing, and they're going to start finding out his character and what he means, and even get more excited for his movie of the people who've never even heard of him. So I
Yeah,
think that it would be a really smart move to have him at least show up for a beat in the Batman.
yeah, I think it's pretty telling that if they are doing a Nightwing movie, that he's going to show up at some point. I would imagine it would have to be in that Batman film, whether he ends up being a secondary character or more or less a cameo. I think that'd be fine. And I don't know, hearing all this good news, seeing Ben tweet out to Matt, having the caliber of director of Matt Reeves, getting the green light with talent like Chris McKay to do Nightwing, who is a fascinating character. I think it's pretty telling that I think it's kind of just all conjecture with Ben Affleck leaving. To me, it just seems that way. I know John Campea is still driving that home hard.
Yeah.
Still, like right after this announcement, he's still driving that. He's like, well, he wants to leave, and I don't know. He's getting a little defensive about the whole thing, and at this point, it would just be best not to really talk about it. Even say for a fact. Why are you trying to kill that excitement for the fans? It just on the surface, it very well could be happening, but on the surface, it doesn't look like that's what's going on there. As far as Ben leaving, but yeah, again, like our conversation on the last episode, it's all going to be telling with what happens with Justice League, what happens with Batman, but you have Nightwing with Batman. It's going to be very interesting because this is a character that he's had a very deep history with, probably for the last 20 years in the movie universe. Between them, he's very close with him. More so, it's a very different dynamic than someone like Alfred, who in this version was the bodyguard for the Waynes, and with them being killed, he let them down, and now he's working with Ben as an old friend and a partner of sorts, with him doing a lot of the behind the scenes things. He can control the Batwing, remotely. That's all really cool. But the dynamic between Dick and Bruce is a very different thing. It's a very cool, synchronized fighting. It's just, if we can get some of that on screen, what they did in some of the Arkham games with sprinkling in Nightwing, if we can see just little inklings of that, put on the big screen, that's going to be incredible. And I couldn't be any more glad with having Chris McKay do that. And I think that having Nightwing, we know we have Cyborg. Granted, Cyborg is a member of the Justice League at this point. We know that he is a youth from Gotham. He was in college there for the GCU. Playing football. So could this open up the door for doing a Titans movie with Nightwing and Cyborg, and maybe bring in characters like Raven? We know we're getting a Dark Universe movie. She could, fit in there. She could be a component in that. Cyborg, Starfire. I think this opens up quite a few doors. And even not even necessarily a younger audience, because they aren't the Teen Titans in this. This would be more the Titans group, which is a little different, because this isn't a 15-year-old Robin. This is probably going to be 25, 28-year-old Dick Grayson. He's grown up. He's doing his own thing. We know Cyborg's already older than college age, working with the Justice League. That's kind of the A game right there. So do you have any ideas for someone that you would like to play Nightwing?
Oh man,
just out there?
Yeah. If I just had to throw one name out there, I'd probably throw out Logan Lerman. Just because he's around that age, and he can play younger too. And I think that the big role for him that really made me think, wow, I think this guy, when thinking about Nightwing, was his role in Fury.
Oh yeah.
And that just how he is, because in Fury, his character in Fury could easily have been the Dick Grayson when he was first hired as Robin to Batman. Like, that character is basically just like just literally wandering around, like, okay, and trying to become part of it. And then by his character at the end of that movie is the new man who he becomes. And it's almost that journey of his character, while obviously very different, it was a fictional World War II story, was still. It had similarities to the character of Dick Grayson, and that at first he was, he was curious, he was the boy wonder, just going around wanting to solve crimes of Batman, and then as they fell out and went apart, he became his own little thing of just, fighting styles and everything, and I just think that he Logan Lerman, I think, would be able to not only handle the physicality of the role, but also the emotional impact. And that's why I just think Logan Lerman's name would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I love Logan. I just feel like he's maybe on the younger side for what they would maybe be going for. But, I'm not saying that this would happen as far as using him or even a different actor. But I have a pretty good idea that we're probably going to see flashbacks of sorts with a younger Robin working with Batman, however brief it may be. I do love Logan Lerman, though. He's a pretty great actor. It's just a fit thing, but I can definitely see where you're coming from on that. I had two actually that I really like, just throwing them out there. Although he's a popular fan cast for Jason Todd, again, I don't want to see him, but I do think he's a fantastic actor. He's around that age range, and I think he's got the personality to kind of pull it off really well. Is Taron Egerton from Kingsman.
From Kingsman, yeah.
He's a very popular fan cast for Jason Todd, just because of the attitude, of how he was done in Kingsman. But he's an actor; he can do multiple things. I'd really like him. I think he's pretty great. We know he can dedicate himself physically to get in shape for that, and also Finn Wittrock. He was a guy that showed up in The Big Short in 2015, the movie about the Depression, the housing market crash that happened in 2007, 2008. I thought he was fantastic in that. He shows up briefly in La La Land as Emma Stone's boyfriend, but he really nails the look. He's got the longer hair. He has a nice mature face. He has a really great presence for a new. I don't necessarily want to say he's an up and coming actor. Apparently, he was in Unbroken, La La Land, Noah, and The Big Short. So these are all relatively newer movies, but for a guy who's just kind of making his way in there, I think he has a tremendous screen presence, a very powerful kind of voice, and I think he's in that nice age range where we could believe that he probably started working with Batman, 15 years ago. But, just if you guys have any fan cast that you would like to throw out there, somebody that you would like to see play Dick Grayson, look up Logan Lerman, Finn Wittrock, and Taron Egerton, but also leave your thoughts down below on who you think that that could be. But, going back to what we mentioned with staying in Gotham. And so now we have, Nightwing happening. We have a Gotham City Sirens, Deadshot possibly going on, and even Suicide Squad 2. That's quite a bit of Gotham movies all set in there. But, even with Batman, I guess it really, really depends on what they're going for. Batman doesn't need to be, fighting somebody on Doomsday level. It doesn't need to be Man of Steel. So you can keep these movies smaller budget. And I have no doubt they could have shaved off 70, 80 million from Suicide Squad's budget if they didn't go with a Save the World plot. Easily. So, you can keep these movies smaller budget and yield a lot more money with just making a great story. These are already grounded characters. All of those Batman villains, Nightwing, Batman, these are grounded characters you can write awesome, crime thriller movies with, throwing in the little bit of the science fiction type characters, these out there crazy, Batman villains, a Killer Croc and whatever. But also it's going to open up the world if they are going with this, if they are going forward with Nightwing, and that he left Gotham. He does his own thing. He's over in a neighboring city called Bloodhaven. And that's where, he does his own thing. And it's very important that Dick isn't too much like Batman. That's why he left. It was kind of out of spite. It was a falling out pretty much always between him and Bruce, and that's why he doesn't want to hide his face the same way. Dick is a very energetic and fun character. In many ways, you could argue that he's I get it. Flash is more in this role because he's definitely the A-lister of these characters, but Nightwing is a similar like Spider-Man type character. He has fun and he kind of fucks with the people when he's fighting with them. So that's really cool and opens up a lot of doors for new fighting styles. As far as what he did, he was an acrobat. His parents died. They were acrobats. They died in the circus. All of this crime stuff ties it in nicely with Batman. So I'm just really excited. But it is interesting that they're doing all these Gotham story spin-offs. But, I'd really like to see what's going to go on. It's really going to depend, I guess, on the success of everything. Because I'd still love to see Man of Steel 2 and 3. I want to see a solid, definitive trilogy for what is a, solo Superman, type of movies. And I want to see those, we started with that. Let's maybe end with that. But but it's you can do these Batman family stories. You can't. I guess you could, but we know that from the prequel comic for Man of Steel, Kara, Supergirl, she's already dead at this point. She was on that ship that crashed in Man of Steel, the one that he finds that has the suit in it. That was why the suit was there. It was their family's colonization ship. So Supergirl's out the window, but we could still maybe get Superboy some point down the road. That kind of opens up the door for Titans even further. Mm-hmm. But usually Supergirl is a big character in most Brainiac storylines. And I really, really want to see the Man of Steel sequel really focus on Brainiac. That's something I want to see. But how do you feel about what they're doing with these Gotham stories? And do you think that they should try to keep these smaller budget? And by smaller, I mean like closer to $100 million and not so close to 150 and up.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up the smaller budget because Mark Bernardin, who is the co-host of the Fat Man on Batman podcast with Kevin Smith, and he used to be the editor for the LA Times, he was actually on Twitter recently talking about Batman, because obviously Fat Man on Batman, he's I guess you could say he's a fan. He was talking about how these movies don't need to be as big a budget like you were saying, and a lot of what he was comparing it to was John Wick, which ironically we talked about it on last week's episode, but he said John Wick is basically Batman with a gun, and how you don't have to those movies don't need that huge budget because that story is told through the characters and told through the fighting styles, which don't require the big save the world plot. It's small and it's unique and in its own way, and Batman could easily be told the same story where the budget only really needed to be spent on costumes, sets, things like that. And also he was basically saying, a cool fight sequence with Batman, it doesn't have to be explosions, this, and that. The Batman we love seeing is the one that's quick and fast and the ninja Batman. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like with everything being set in Gotham, I hope that they spread out those movies. I hope that we get a Gotham-based movie, then we get another DC film, and then another Gotham-based movie.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be staggered, but I think that's the only reason they were able to kind of announce these is because they would be smaller budget if you're going to throw out 4 more Gotham movies, not including Batman. Nightwing, Sirens, Deadshot, and Suicide Squad. I mean, they would have to be staggered.
Because honestly, you could make Nightwing, you could make that movie for $80 million. Maybe even easily. 75. Just because, you have to think, Deadpool was $50 million. Deadpool was a $50 million movie. And what they pulled off with $50 million is unreal.
And Nightwing doesn't need to be any bigger in scale than what Deadpool was. It could be smaller.
It can, you're right. And even Batman, I think, honestly, you could make a $100 million, maybe even $85 million Batman movie. Now, it wouldn't be the grandest scale Batman movie, but you could get a nice personal story with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying do that with this first standalone Batman, but maybe even down the line, if they have a unique character piece, you can go ahead and use that budget on something else for maybe Justice League sequel down the road. Something that would need that extra money.
I just feel like when it comes to anything with Batman and Warner Brothers, they just go full on Jurassic Park and no expenses were spared on anything. They'll just throw as much money as these people need to make sure they can get Batman out there. It's just, it's crazy sometimes because I look at some of the Marvel films, and granted, a lot of stuff is done in-house, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, with working at Marvel Studios proper. Mm-hmm. And not having to work with Warner Brothers. I think even Thor. I think Thor: The Dark World, I could be wrong, but I know most of those movies, most of the Marvel movies hang out around the $170 million budget.
Yeah.
I don't see why you would need. I think even The Dark Knight was up there, like $170 million, and that's just crazy because it doesn't look like a movie that would need that. So who knows where that money goes out, but usually that's just the posted budget that's released to the press. That doesn't necessarily mean that they spent all of that money on the production. They could just spend $50 million less for all we know, and then of course marketing costs and everything out there. But I'm sure that has a lot to do with why they're greenlighting these films and putting them out there in the public that they're going to happen. And you mentioned earlier about Warner Brothers announcing movies that they're not making. They've announced a lot, but I don't think they just haven't been made because we haven't hit the date of when they're coming. We just keep hearing the bad news about mostly The Flash losing everything. But it's the slate is so far away. I mean, it's like for me, I'm most looking forward after Man of Steel. I'm most looking forward to Green Lantern, and I know that I'm not going to see that for another 3 years.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. But we still got to remember that although they started this franchise 4 years ago with Man of Steel, there was a 3-year gap. So in reality, this franchise just got started last year. I mean, in a month from now. This franchise is basically less than a year old with Dawn of Justice. I get it. It started with Man of Steel, but they had such a big gap, in the public conscious. Of course, everybody knows that they're related, but now we're actually rolling multiple movies out every year with this cinematic universe. But we are probably going to wrap things up today. You can go ahead and leave your thoughts down below on what you make of having Matt Reeves on board for the Batman. What do you make of Chris McKay playing Nightwing? And as far as who we got writing, Bill Dubuque, and throw out your casting choices for that. Would you want to see, opening this Nightwing door? Do you want to see a Titans movie with Cyborg and the other ones? And what do you make of all these Gotham-type movies? As always, guys, we'll be glad to see you next week when we shoot another episode. This has been your Movie Fix. Tyler here with
Dalton.
And leave your thoughts down below. Always want to discuss and hear your thoughts. And for more movie news, movie reviews, all that great stuff, be sure to subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.
Later, guys.